week 8 of the fantasy football season. And here's a few quarterbacks I have as sleeper options this week. The first guy, Gardner Minshew of the Indianapolis Colts. So last week, Gardner Minshew, he went out there and he put on a good performance in that tough loss versus the Cleveland Browns. So Gardner Minshew last week, I had him as a sleeper option. And he had a big ball game with 32 fantasy points, 305 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception, 29 rush yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, and 3 fumble losses. I know he turned the ball over 4 times. We know this Brown defense with Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward as the 2 main players are going to create havoc. But this week in a matchup, it could be a similar type of game versus New Orleans Saints, that their defense is a little bit similar to this Brown defense. I think Gardner Minshew, he's got good weapons. Jonathan Taylor, he looked good out of the backfield catching the football and running. We saw Josh Downs have another big game with Michael Pittman. In this week here in a potential shootout, once again, Gardner Minshew right now available in 86% of fantasy leagues. He's a quarterback I have as a sleeper this week. Next guy, Kenny Pickett of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So Kenny Pickett, I know it's been not great of a season for him. A guy I thought could break out coming into the year, but he pretty much hasn't done much with only 1 game over 20 fantasy points this season. But he's still putting up 14, 15 points a week. So the last 2 games for Pickett, week 5 versus Baltimore, 224 pass yards, a touchdown. Week 7 at the Rams, 230 pass yards in that one and a rushing touchdown. And week 8, a decent matchup here versus the Jacksonville Jaguars that give up the 4th most fantasy points to quarterbacks on the season. So Deontay Johnson, he's back. Last week, 5 catches, 79 yards. You got George Pickens, who's quickly emerging as the number 1 wide receiver over there for this Steelers team. And Jalen Warren out of the backfield. So right now he's got some weapons. I know he's not 100% within the injury sustained a few weeks ago versus the Baltimore Ravens. But I think Kenny Pickett, he could go out there, he could make some plays in this ball game. And like I said, you got Pickens and Johnson, 2 solid wideouts, and Warren out of the backfield that can make plays. So this week, while he's available in 81% of fantasy leagues, and he's got a good matchup on paper, he's a quarterback I have as a sleeper this week. And the third and final QB I have as a sleeper is Tyson Beckett of the Chicago Bears. So Beckett, he looked pretty decent in his first career start versus the Raiders. I know this Raider defense really isn't that good, but 162 pass yards and a touchdown, and he even rushed for 24 yards on 3 attempts. So this week here, good matchup on paper at the Chargers. I give up the most fantasy points to quarterbacks on the season. So right now he's got good weapons. DJ Moore, Deonta Foreman, he had a monster ball game last week, even caught a few passes out of the backfield. You got Cole Kmet, even though he did have the goose egg, but there's some weapons on this offense, and they've been running more of a traditional offense ever since Justin Fields got hurt in that week 6 game. So right now, what Beckett's available in 96% of fantasy leagues. And if you're in a pinch in deep dynasty leagues or 2 quarterback leagues here, I think he's a decent sleeper option this week. So that's a few quarterbacks I have as sleepers for week 8 of the fantasy football season.